Hello, Mr. Weber.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Okay, yes. So thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let me briefly introduce you. You've written a book together with your partner, Katie, The Place Between Here and There. And in 2015, you had a near fatal motorcycle accident, which landed you in a coma for 3 weeks, during which you had a near death experience. And I would like to talk to you about your experiences and your insights. But first, could you take us back to the day of the accident and tell our viewers what happened at the time?
Yes. What had happened is that I live in a town in Long Island called Kings Park. That's in the USA, New York in the US. And I was driving out east to the Hamptons to enjoy some barbecue. And, it was a Sunday afternoon, middle of the afternoon. It's something I did fairly often. I've been driving Harley Davidson motorcycles all my life since I was a little tyke. Paper route. I got one, as a very young kid. There were fields and everything. So it's been my life. And I was driving down the road. There was a lot of traffic in the area. And there must have been an accident up ahead, and people were driving on the shoulder of the road and making a right-hand turn to get out of traffic. And so foolishly, that's what I did. And then when I got to the intersection, a car was coming through. Someone had let them in. They come through. It was actually a truck, and it broadsided me right on the side of my body, all on my left-hand side. And for me, that's when the lights went out. I didn't know anything had happened at that point. The next thing that happened is I was laying on the ground and I was looking up, and all of a sudden I saw all of this emergency equipment around me, and there were people standing, and I realized a lot of time had passed, and I really didn't realize what had happened. But then things started to sink in, and my first reaction was to get up. Riding dirt bikes. There's like I'm sure every doctor will disagree with it, but if you fall down, get up. If you don't get up, you're going to stay down. I know it's very silly, but it's just kind of like the folklore. So my first thing was to try to get up. And although the medical professionals said, stay down, kind of like Rocky, stay down. But I wanted to get up. And I felt this stabbing pain in my hip. And I realized it was disconnected. Like my bones weren't right. Like they were jabbing into me. I felt such an incredible pain. And I laid back, and I realized the world for me was going to be very different. And then the next thing I noticed, I was soaring through the clouds. And I thought, a lot of things, but then I started descending from the clouds. And then I saw a round circle on the ground. I knew where I was. I was in a helicopter. I was being airlifted to Stony Brook Hospital. That is one.
But I presume your body was actually in the helicopter and shouldn't be able to see the landing spot of the helicopter. Am I right? Or
No.
Or did you stick out the window?
No.
The window.
I wasn't inside the helicopter.
Exactly.
I was outside the helicopter. No, I was outside. That was so eerie about it because I wasn't inside anything. Because if you're inside something, it was an adjustment. Let's just say it took a while for me to realize what had happened. And then like I was saying, I was landing at Stony Brook Hospital, and that's like one of the premier trauma centers in the United States. They like invented the sonograph. They do all this great research there. It's just dumb luck. I just happened to live near Stony Brook University, and I had a broken spine. They had to put 2 metal rods with all these screws into my spine. My hip was shattered. They had to do all these innovative surgeries. But the main thing was my internal bleeding. I kept on bleeding, and they had to do several surgeries to locate what was wrong. And that was my immediate issue. And so that took several surgeries. And then I had this thing called compartmental syndrome in my leg, that I was losing my leg. And so they had to do fasciotomy, I think they said. And then that's the way it was. And for the next 3 weeks to the rest of the world, I was in my hospital bed. But in my mind, in my soul, and who I am, I was in another place. And
Hmm.
that's what we're here to talk about, the place
Yes.
between here and there.
Yes. Yeah. So did you wake up during that time or?
There were times that I thought I was awake, but I wasn't.
Mhm.
Because like there was this there, and when we talk about the story, but there was
Yeah.
a time when I was sure there was someone there praying with me.
Mm.
Like someone was coming to visit me often,
Yeah.
but they never came. But I was so sure I was awake in my room, stuff
Yes.
like that. But there wasn't a moment where I woke up, I had a moment of lucidity, I knew where I was, and then I went back into no, that did not happen.
Yeah. So what happened then in your
Okay.
experience?
Yeah. So now the first things I noticed, I just want to mention is that now my life is different. But at that time, I was zero on the spirituality scale. I was. No. I was a good person. I'm a computer guy, and I was a
Yeah.
father, and I was a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And I ran a computer business from my home, and I was a full-time dad. I cared about my kids. I worked very hard at computers, but I loved my motorcycles. And I just, I I just wasn't ready for this. So early on, when I first had this experience, I didn't know I was anywhere else. And for a long time, it went very slow, the experience. But as time went on, the experience picked up in intensity. So at first, I found myself in a very work-like situation. I'm a
Hmm.
computer guy,
Hmm.
and I was solving people's computer problems. And and it wasn't people I recognized, just standard stuff. But then one day, as I saw somebody who I knew, who I haven't seen in years,
Hmm.
but they just like I remembered them. And I
Hmm.
was interacting with them. And then I saw them again, but I saw them as a very old person, like an elderly person. But I was still able to recognize them. If you see someone young, you see somebody old, you can recognize them, like an old
Yeah.
picture or a young
Yes.
picture.
Hmm.
And then it started to move a little quicker. Then I started to see him in different shapes and sizes, meaning like I would see him as a woman. I would see him as a tall man. I would see
Hmm.
him, and I'm just using the word him. It was a spirit, but I
Yeah.
was seeing them in all different shapes and sizes and all different appearances. But over time, I was still able to see who they were,
Hmm.
regardless of what shape or form they took. And what I was beginning to feel, I was beginning to see and sense the spirit, that part of them that was always in spirit, that part that always, has been since the dawn of time, has been since forever, and will
Hmm.
continue forever. That infinite part of you that goes on forever. I was being taught to see that. You
Hmm.
see, in this first place, that was where I learned what I call the language of the universe. I learned certain wisdoms about the universe and about why we're here and the meaning of life itself. And it wasn't that it was like, okay, Steve, this is 101 spirituality. Here's the first chapter, go. No, that's how I was taught things. The way I was taught to see spirit was by seeing people in different shapes and sizes and still being able to recognize them and realizing that
Hmm.
that was part of them. That was the way I learned things. And
Hmm.
then once I was able to see spirit, then things started to change because I came to certain realizations. Like first off, I came to the realization that we are spirit, that everybody's spirit. And once I started to sense spirit in everybody and everything, I started to realize everything had spirit,
Hmm.
everything. And that I also realized that all of these spirits are connected because once I saw spirit, one experience led to another, that led to another, that led to another. And each one of these experiences taught me that wisdom of the universe, or at least what I needed to know for the next steps. And so, like I said, it wasn't that somebody was explaining to me. What they were doing is they were appealing to my inner teacher. In yoga, we call that Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. I bow, I recognize your inner teacher inside of you.
Hmm.
And really what that means is that the way I was learning is that nobody was telling me. I was experiencing things, and my inner teacher was understanding them, and then I was understanding them. You see, is that it wasn't that anybody was teaching me. It was that these experiences were happening and they were raising my awareness.
Yeah.
But at first,
Was there nobody else with you at the time?
No, it was just me. I mean, there wasn't. But later on, yeah, there are some other things.
Yeah.
But at this point, this is when I'm just being introduced to like this area. And still, at this time, I did not know.
And when you say everything has a spirit, how did you visualize that, or what do you mean by that for somebody who can't imagine that?
What happens is that once I was able to see spirit, and it was easy for me to see spirit, I didn't have to see it anymore. I felt it. If somebody was around me, I felt it right away. Mm-hmm. And I knew who it was. And it was just a feeling like I was being tuned to that. Once I found that energy, like all of a sudden, I felt that energy, it was coming from other places. It wasn't coming from just the person in front of me or the spirit in front of me. I felt it from everything else around me. I felt it here. It was just everywhere, but it wasn't something you could see. It was like cells in a body. Is that each cell has its own life. It has its own identity. It has its own everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It lives and dies, and it has no idea of who you are. But all of your cells make up your consciousness, debatable, consciousness and who you are. And they don't know anything. And once I began to get that feeling, I started to sense. Once I was taught how to see spirit, I was able to sense the spirit in everything. And I was able to sense all those spirits were the same. It was like connected. I came to this final realization that I realized in my own way that the creator and the creation are one. That we aren't two, that science and spirit are one. They explain the same thing. The Big Bang and spirit of creation, it's the same thing. We're here. We're all together. We're all part of us. All of us make up the universe. We're all stardust and we're all spirit. It is one and the same thing. And those are some of the lessons that I began to learn there and began to real. It was, once again, it wasn't somebody teaching me. It was just as my awareness grew, I understood things more until I got to the point where I stopped learning things and then things changed.
You say in your book that time doesn't exist there, at least not in the sense that we're used to it.
Yes. What is time? You know, not in a physics sense, but I mean, like, it's like you have an appointment in the future. You have the bread will get moldy if you leave it out. The sun rises and falls. Water boils. Like, things happen. Things don't happen like that. They just don't. It's that the way you sense time is through your learning, through your understanding, through your increased awareness and how you got that increased awareness. So now when I went through all that processes of first seeing that one person and seeing them all shapes and size and then growing and seeing the spirits and growing and doing all those things, is that all of that stops. Once I stopped learning, that all stopped. And then I was at the next step. And this is what I call the next place where I received my life review.
I was going to ask about that, the life review.
Because the first part was all like raising my awareness. You know, at the time I did not know this. I just thought, I don't know. At one point I came to the realization in the first place, like, this can't be happening. But then all of a sudden I found myself in a new situation quickly and I forgot about that thought until later. But it starts to become, I start to become more understanding as time goes on. Like I said, it moved very slowly at first, but as soon as my understanding began to raise, then things started to move a lot faster. And so in the life review is that what happened is that I was watching my life as a voyeur. But now I could see spirit. And so now every situation I was involved with was different now, because now I see why everybody's there. They're not there because I'm here. Maybe I'm having a schoolyard fight with somebody. Maybe I'm making out with my girlfriend, but the whole point of it is that everybody is there for their own reasons on their own path. And for their own lessons to be learned in those situations. I was learning about the multidimensional aspect of life that people's trajectories do cross. Mm-hmm. And maybe for a moment, maybe for a lifetime, but it doesn't mean that moment in your life wasn't so critical, wasn't so important, wasn't evolutionary. And that's what I began to see. As I began to see each situation, I began to understand, and I started to realize that your experiences are everything. They are the only thing you could take with. That's why we're here. That's the very reason for life, is to evolve and grow as spirits. And as we do that, we grow collectively as the creator and the creation, and which is the purpose for life. But when going through the life review is that some of the most awful experiences in my life were the ones that brought me the most bliss in the life review. Mm-hmm. Every time I did the life review, closer to infinity than to one, so many times until I stopped learning. But each time I did my life review and I got to the end, I felt so blissful. I went through such difficult things and realizations to have to happen in order to feel that bliss and to resolve these unresolved issues, to get the best understanding out of everything that's happened to me in my life. And each time I did that, I grew, and there was an urgency. And what was the urgency? It was the bliss. Each time I went through this, I felt more blissful. I felt like, as I solved things, is that I didn't have hate or animosity towards anybody anymore, or myself. Like so many times people, they beat up themselves. They have such guilt and shame and regret for things in their life, and they torture themselves. Mm-hmm. But really what they're doing is they're creating those blockages that are preventing them from understanding the true lessons and the things that will bring them peace in this world and any other world that comes after it. That is so critical with that life review. It's the understanding and the growing and the realization that some of the worst things are some of the most important things in your life. So how can you have hate or animosity towards anybody who brings you bad things? Don't allow people, don't be a martyr. In my opinion, don't be a martyr. Don't allow people to do bad things to you. But when bad things happen, don't have a hate or animosity, jealous or greed or those other things. Try to put those aside and try to understand it. Because once you can relieve those blockages, then you can really understand and you can find peace. It's not just, oh, I want to learn. No, because if you're suffering with such you had a breakup and you're torturing yourself over it, wouldn't you want to be relieved of that torture? And it's by doing this life, and I do this life review all the time in my life now. Once I've learned that, is that, life is good and people are good, even when sad things happen. And that's the way I walk through life. And that's what, having that life review made me understand, is that anytime I find fault in myself, and my wife helps me out a lot. She likes to point things out that I'm doing wrong. But once I find fault in myself, I get excited because I know I could get better. And that was a lot during my recuperation. Like I would wake up every morning, I'd be in pain, but I knew by the end of the day, like you go through a period of rapid, improvement. I knew by the end of the day, I would feel so much better. And that's the way the life review worked. At the beginning, I knew it was going to be a tough day. I did. But as time went on, I did this over and over again. I started to feel like I was playing for I don't know, Manchester United. I felt like things were always going my way. I felt really great, when I was doing these life reviews. But finally, I got to that point where I stopped learning.
In your book, you say a lot of really good things, which a lot of readers, I'm sure, can resonate with. One of the things I picked up, which fits with this, when you say, Earth life is a difficult existence, but it is the one in which growth should happen most rapidly.
That's very important because people often talk about past lives, and yes, yeah, because you have many experiences, and as you grow through different incarnations, you grow spiritually, and that's that is in and of itself is the purpose for life. And when you come into this world, if you had the knowledge, if you had the awareness that you had in spirit, you wouldn't make the mistakes. You wouldn't learn certain lessons because that you would have enough sense to avoid those situations. And see, so when I was in spirit, like I was reviewing what has already happened and drawing new conclusions from it, but I really wasn't experiencing. I was experiencing things, but really not in the same way on earth. On earth, you're ignorant. And so now you have to figure out everything all over again to see if inside, to really see if you've learned and you're ready and you're evolving, you're continuing to evolve. It's not like someone's judging your progress and say, oh, well, you didn't learn today. One more day for Steve. No, it wasn't like that. It was that it was a natural process. It was a natural process. Like dying is a natural process. Returning to spirit is a natural process. It was a natural process for me.
You mentioned the three.
Yeah. So first off is that after visiting after learning the language of the universe and then going to the life review, then eventually I stopped learning. And then the next place I was tested on my knowledge. And at the time, I didn't know I was being tested. I didn't. It was just like another extension of what was going on. And what I did is I found myself in a situation where I was put in charge of these kids and young adults. And I had to teach them a task. And no matter what I did, the kids wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't listen to me. It was a simple task. And I would connect with them and be like, I see you, you see me. Come on, let's go team, red team, blue team, whoever went. I tried every way of coercing, every way of trying to get these kids to do what they were supposed to do. But no matter what I did, they didn't listen to me. But they would assure me that they would do the right thing, and they never would. And I was failing at this. And I was just kind of like at my wit's end. And then I stood before the person, the being, whoever it was, my boss. And I came to the realization that I saw myself. I saw myself in that spirit. And I realized that I was standing before my higher self, not Stevie Weber. And like Stevie Weber's here and Stevie Weber's here. No, it was like, here is Stevie Weber, me. Here is my higher self. But Stevie Weber is just a little piece of part of my higher self. I felt that connection. I felt that understanding. I felt like I knew certain things about this person. I really did. But I couldn't tell what had happened. But I could tell that a lot of things had happened. And they felt really good about it. Like they understood things. They understood a lot. And I saw like their energy was so intense, like it had like an aura to it. It had like not like an aura like we see, like you go before someone and they have an aura thing and a machine say, oh, your aura is yellow today. No, it wasn't like that. It was like in the same way in the other place I learned to read energy or feel energy. Now I could actually see it in a way. And now when I stood before my higher self, it wasn't that my higher self told me anything or communicated to me in any way. It was that by standing in their grace and understanding the way that they look at the world or the universe, like all of a sudden, as I pondered things started to come to me really quick. I started to understand things really quick. It wasn't that being was telling me anything. It was just by being in their energy, like it gave me a certain way of understanding and being able to figure things out. And then all of a sudden, everything came to me because I realized what I thought was going on was nothing. Is that I was failing with these kids. The reason why I was failing is that I was taught all this way how to see spirit. I was taught all of these lessons. And then when I was given that chance to use all of what I was learned, I failed at it. All I did was see the kids as dopey kids. I didn't see them as spirits. And then I realized that they were spirits who had yet to have a human incarnation, that I was there to shepherd them into their first human incarnation. And that is what I didn't realize and that I was failing at because I wasn't seeing them as a spirit, because they spent all this time for me to understand like the true meaning of people. And I just failed at it. I just saw them as kids. But a very important lesson I learned here is that sometimes the same lessons are learned in failure as they are in success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I really wish people would understand is just because you failed at something doesn't mean you didn't learn. You didn't understand. You don't have to win every time. All you have to do is understand every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was it. Once I was able to see the spirits, I was able to understand those kids, and then it changed. And then I was in the very final place.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned in the beginning, I live in a small town. It's basically, I don't know, it's a redneck town. I don't know people around the world. We're working class people. We're working class people. We work with our hands, and everyone else around us is professional people. And so we have a certain bond together. It's a working class bond. I don't know how to explain it, but it's something. And so at the end of every day in my town, we all go down to the beach and we watch the sunset. And some people go with coffee, other people go with red Solo cups that don't have coffee in them, and we watch the sunset together. And so what I found myself in this place with two old friends of mine. These are first people who I saw in that place who I knew, who I recognized, who I knew, like in the real, like I met that other person who I knew years ago, when I was first being introduced to things, but these were people who were in my life every day. And they were here. And so I would sit there and I'd watch the sunset with them every day. Now, I mentioned that time doesn't pass. It doesn't pass. But the sunset wasn't marking time. The sunset was part of that experience. It wasn't part of any other experience. So that was the experience. And so I would sit there with my two friends, Joey and John, and we'd watch the sunset every day. And these people, Joe was an old friend of mine. He was like in his 70s, and he had broken his back diving in the water at where we were. And this was years ago in the 60s. He had to have some surgery on his neck, and he walked around like Frankenstein. He's like, but he's such a character. I love this guy. He was an old Irish guy, and he just he could tell a tale. He had that wit, and I just really loved that guy a lot. And John, he was like the voice of God in church when he would say, "And Jesus said," and you feel the things rumble. He was a really great guy, and he was in his 70s too. And I spent a lot of time with these guys, and I'd watch the sunset with them every day, and it went on for a long time. I didn't think anything of it at first, and then one day I realized that that John had died earlier that year. He was hit by a car, and the talk was he couldn't move. He had some problems with his movement, and so a car eventually hit him. And John, he died of diabetes that year. He had he was having these septic infections in his leg, and it wound up taking his life.
Right.
And when I realized that for the first time, I realized that what's going on. And then all of a sudden, once I started to realize that, I started to review everything that happened. And all of a sudden I had this great moment of lucidity that this can't be going on. Like how could Joey and John be here? How could all these things have just happened? Like, how could this have happened? And then I started to experience anxiety, like I would sit there day after day and I would look at them and never said a word. And I'd look at them and I was like wondering, I wanted to ask them why they are here, why they're here. But for some reason, I felt like I couldn't ask them. Like I don't know why. And so I just felt this building sense of urgency over a period of time. And I felt just one day, if I didn't ask them, I would never have this opportunity again. This was it. And so I asked them. And when I asked them, you think it, but it's not like you think the words, "Oh, Joey," it's just you just think it, but not asking, you just think it, and then the answer comes. And then they told me they were here to make sure I'm all right. I didn't know what that was being, because I didn't see them up until that point, and I've been through so much. I didn't see one thing of them. I just didn't understand it. It just echoed in my ear, like, all right, like, what do they mean? There's nothing wrong with me. It's like, I didn't know I was in an accident. I've been walking around. I've been doing everything. There's nothing. And
so you, in that state, you hadn't realized.
No. And then finally I watched the sunset one last time. And then it just got brighter and brighter. And then I opened my eyes And my mother was there, and my sister. I was in my hospital room, and my
Mm-hmm.
mother was holding my hand, and she was telling me that I'd been in a terrible accident, but I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was the first half, but it was just such a, it was, wow. I didn't know what to make of it at first. I
Yeah.
really
So in
didn't.
your
It
memory of
was,
all this, you hadn't really completely realized you were in a different world or dimension. It
well, no,
was
at this point, complete denial.
mm-hmm.
I attributed it to head injury, accident,
Oh,
coma, medicine in the hospital.
okay.
I
Oh,
attributed it all to that. I called it the universe according. There was a short time after that.
so you did,
That
sorry. So you didn't wake up, I had a near death experience.
no,
No, you thought rather, okay.
yeah, kind of trippy. I feel okay. It took me a while to adjust because that I felt fine. I
Yeah.
felt fine.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this was all nonsense. I felt like a moment had passed, and
Mm-hmm.
like I felt fine. Like I wanted to get up and get out, but I was tied down.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the first time I've been tied down with my clothes before. Like it's just like, come on. I was just freaking out, but it took me a while to adjust to it that I really was injured because I didn't feel injured.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been the drugs or what have you. I felt okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a little while to adjust to it. But the first recollection I really had that I remembered it right away was that there was a person there that
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they were in my hospital room with me. I
Mm-hmm.
was sure that they were. And they were praying. But I also felt them praying in that other place. And they were there.
Mm-hmm.
But at first I didn't recognize them. And it's like, I know this person. But I didn't hear their words. Like maybe a few of them, but I heard, it wasn't that I heard it. It was the energy that they
Yeah.
were putting into it. That's what I felt. I felt this intense love. I felt this energy. I felt this deep concern. I felt this, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt this love.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that her prayers were like there's a consciousness saying, okay, yesterday you didn't pray enough, but today you prayed enough. Bingo, your wish comes true. No, it was nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was this energy. This energy gave me strength. And I felt those prayers.
Mm-hmm.
But now when I woke up and I could see spirit, I remembered who that person was.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It was my friend Kathy, who's my co-author. But at this time, she was one of my mom friends. I was a stay-at-home dad. Mr. Mom. I had nothing but mom friends. I was I was on the school board. It's like, and I knew it was what was her. And for some reason, and I'm telling you, we had just we had a friend, a friend. We hiked together, group of friends, and we talked. We've known each other for like 20 years. But so I felt odd, but I I let her know that that she was there, and I said that she was in my hospital room. She said no, she wasn't. She
I
was
was going to
just praying.
say she didn't come to the hospital.
Yeah, she didn't come to the hospital, but I was so certain she was there. And it was that experience that came later on that was very important to me. But this is what began the beginning of my other than friendship with Kathy. That this long trek of understanding that this experience that perhaps it wasn't the universe according to Steve. That perhaps I did go to this other place. I did have these experiences. And things have happened since then that we explain in detail in the book that validates so much of what this, and it was a long, hard slog because I denied it almost to the end that I'm a computer guy. I'm a computer guy,
Yeah.
And I am. And so it's logic. And that's why I think a lot of the things that were presented to me were in very logical ways, because that I believe like the lessons that you learn are very similar to everybody. But the way in which you learn them are different, because the way that you approach Steve, the computer guy, is a little different than you approach Sally, the actress, or the musician, or something else. Everyone, or someone in India or someplace else, it's like everyone has their own experience. They learn their own lessons. There are many paths, but no.
You say that in your book.
Yeah.
Each soul's experience in the place between here and there is tailored specifically to its physical life so that learning can take place.
Exactly. Exactly. That's so true. Or else I would, if I'm sitting there and they were presenting other stuff, I would never have gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
because I was a computer guy. They were relating it to me in that way.
Mm-hmm. The other
And
thing before you go on, which touched me, everything that we do in life has a dual meaning. Do you want to comment on that one?
okay, so when I was going through my life review, you remember how I was mentioning that that I had my reason for being there, and everyone else had their reasons for being there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a reason because, okay, let's say I was having a schoolyard fight. I'm there to have the schoolyard fight with this kid, and everyone else is there. And we all have our reasons for being there because he stole my lunch or he did this. Now, there's another reason why all this is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the lunch. It has to do with lessons that are being learned, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's on their path. That's why everyone else has a different reason for being there. That's why I have a reason, is because we're all learning in a different way, in a different paths with the same situations. And that's what I meant by that.
Mm-hmm. But I think you also referred to your work, that you saw an analogy in your daily work with what it means on a more deeper level.
Well, there were a few other things about that. One thing what was having to do with the kids, like I mentor kids, not kids. I say kids.
Yeah.
They're engineers. They're smart, brilliant people who a lot smarter than me, And I mentor them in work, but they always have a big surprise when they get me, because I am an engineer. I'm pretty good at it too.
Mm-hmm.
But I talk to them about spirit and about understanding the meaning and what they're doing, and about lessons and about sharing and about collaboration and about their purpose here. So they really get an earful with me. But now I find like I have a group of people around me that I see and they see me.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that, I don't know, I found that the kids were open enough that I could connect to them. I'd probably get fired, but it's just like, I just try to, what I learned in that place is so important, is that ethics and spirituality is an asset in today's world. It is. People look as liability because you walked away from something that was unethical because it was unethical. Oh, you're ignorant. No, it's a law of attraction. You create a world for yourself that is based upon these principles of love and light and understanding, and you create and surround your people. You give examples. It's like a multiplying effect. Even now, like I could still feel energy. It's not as clear as it was there, but I could read energy. I could read people. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but reading is the wrong word. Reading's like a voyeur. It's not like I'm reading like voyeuring. It's that I sense their energy in the same way like I sense the energy in my higher self. Like I sense people's energy now in a way, but everybody senses people energy. And that's what I learned. Once my ability to see energy, feel energy was heightened, I realized I always had it, but I disregarded it because it couldn't be real. It wasn't science, because that this makes sense. It can't be real. Well, it is, it just takes a little while to adjust to that.
So when did you realize or accept that there is life after death?
Well, I guess it's when my son died. My son, 20-year-old kid, he's beautiful young man, died of a heroin overdose. And he was
when was that?
That was a year after my accident.
1 year after. Uh-huh.
And he was a championship wrestler. He was New York State champion. He was a musician. He played the guitar like Jimi Hendrix. He played the piano like Mozart. He played the saxophone like Dizzy Gillespie played the horn. He was just such a multi-dimensional personality. I really felt so strongly when I raised the kids, is like arts, academics, and athletics. Those are the things. Those three things create balance in life. I forgot about the spirit, but I wasn't spiritual. But really, that was the way I drove it. And when my son passed, is that I felt so guilty. I felt so terrible. I felt like what did I do wrong? And it was during this time that I began to get closer to my friend Kathy. And then one day in my grief, Kathy says to me, she says, has my son, Nick is his name, has he ever tried to contact me? I was outraged by her. I'm struggling with all these definite emotions, and she's talking about my Nick's son contacting me. Like, but all right, fine. So I was like, no, I love you, baby. I mean, I just dismissed it. But the next thing that's happening is that she got these little statues of Saint Teresa and that it's a Catholic saint and
Yeah.
from France, and she started to take all these statues. We started to walk around Long Island because we hike, and she's putting them next to trees. And then we would take a magic marker and we'd write on a stone prayers or peace, love, or ask for help for Nick or something. And we'd leave the pen there. And then the next day we would come back and we'd see like 5 or 6 rocks, and with people signing things. And we had like 30 of these on Long Island. And as the time went on, there were hundreds of rocks. I mean, really, literally hundreds of rocks with people's names on them, asking for love or asking for prayers or just asking for a break in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I really started to feel something else, because I began to realize, you remember the Sting song Message in a Bottle, where he puts a message in the bottle, he's hoping for the world, and he comes back and there's 10,000 messages, and he realizes he's not alone in this world. And that was the first time that I realized that not only was I not alone in this world, but we were together. We all were together. And that brought me a sense of peace in the same way I felt that peace in the other place, that all of a sudden I realized that I'm not alone in this world. And those were a series of steps that were going on. And then what had happened is a cousin had gone to a psychic, and the psychic mentioned Saint Teresa. And this was weird because that we had put these statues. And she said that my son was trying to contact us, and that he was working through Saint Teresa. Do you know about? And Kathy told him the story of what was going on. And then the psychic said, no, it's bigger than that. He says, my son has a synchronicity for Saint Teresa, and he's sending flowers. I just thought that was odd, because for the last few weeks, we've been seeing flowers everywhere. And Kathy was saying to me, oh, it's a message. I said, it's not a message, just people flowers. They're just, no, but it's like the winter with seeing roses. I just thought it was odd. But then she said, she gave us a card, and she said, take this card and put it at the shrine, we used to call it. And so no problem. We took the card, we went to the shrine, and on the card I look, and it says, the day Saint Teresa was born was January 2nd. That's the same day my son was born. And then the day Saint Teresa was canonized was May 17th. That was the day my son died. And then, like, I'm a computer guy, I could work out statistics, and it just wasn't that one thing. It was just so odd, so odd that. And then I started to think about things a little bit more. And then I started to realize, and then Kathy and I began to talk, and I began to share the more details about this experience. But then as I began to talk to her about it, recite it really for the first time in details, is that I began to have this realization that my son is there, and that he's experiencing so many of the things that I was experiencing, and that he must be feeling bliss, and that I feel terrible and awful about all the things that I won't be able to see, but I'll see him again. But his whole self, everything is going to be all right. That's what I learned. He is okay. And once that happened, poof, the world changed. Because that not only did I really feel reconnected with that place and this whole experience, all these other things, but also I got my son back, because that grief was a blockage. It was stopping me. Anytime I thought of my son, I thought of the circumstances of him passing. How terrible a circumstances can it be? At least in my world, I felt so terrible. But once I was able to relieve myself of that, I got my son back. Because now when I think of him, I think of all the times this guy was a character. He was an immense human being. He would destroy people in the wrestling thing. But then in the lobby, he would sit on the piano and would play the most beautiful sonata, and people's mouths would just be dropping like, what? What? They just couldn't reconcile the two people. And so that's what I got back. But I also realized that I had a lot of work to do in my hometown, because every time I saw anybody, they looked at me with such grief and sadness in their eyes. And I remember the funeral, and I saw all that grief and sadness, but it was a different grief than mine. They were grieving for the loss of their child. They were grieving for that possibility as well. They were grieving for my son, but for the grace of God, it wasn't them. and they felt bad about that.
Hmm.
And so the first things I did is I took one of my son's championship wrestling medals. I went to his coach. I met him at the pub. I put the medal around his neck, and I told him I want him to have it. I want him to stop crying. And that was what was the first step, because my friends wouldn't mention their children to me. But now, first time, every time I see him, how's Frankie doing?
Yeah.
I want to hear everything about it. I don't miss anything. And so it's part of a healing experience. So that's what the place between here and there really did. It really helped me understand everything. I don't mean everything. I mean, make sense of the things that I needed to make sense of, and to prepare me for this terrible thing that was to happen, and to come back on the other side of it, and to have made sense of it. That's what this Life Reviews did for me. It helped me to like I had to grieve. I did. It was a year. I mean, really, it was a year. It was so, I had to grieve. But once I was able to live through it and put that beside me, everything changed. It really did. And I really began to really understand and really make sense of life and things. And I began to realize that, life is good and people are good even when sad things happen. And I miss my son, and I hope, I wish things didn't turn out the way they did. But gosh, life is good. I'm enjoying life. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm sharing the story, the place between here and there.
Yeah.
I'm sharing the story because it's important. It's not about a book. Not about a book. I'm a computer guy. Yeah, this is just a little bit, a little thing. But it's the message, it's the understanding of love and light, and that especially with all these crazy things that are going on in this world, these things are so important to us, and the reason for us learning and growing. But one of the things that really, really, really connected me with my son after the fact is that I'd walk on the beach with my co-author Kathy, and she likes Saint Germain and the violet flame, and this is like a spiritual, beautiful spiritual thing. I tease her about it because that it's just something between us. And she would ask Saint Germain for affirmation, like something that he heard her, and he's going to act on her behalf. This is Kathy's. This is what she does, and so she asked for violet beach glass, and she didn't get any violet beach. And we searched all day. And so we're walking away, and she's saying, "Oh, well, I guess Saint Germain didn't hear my prayers. I didn't get any violet beach glass." And I tease her about this because there's a certain aspect of this is kind of funny to me, but I still have more ascension to do. So we're walking out of there. We see this Dalmatian puppy like jumping all over everything, and we're like, hello. And we love dogs. I mean, we have two of them. We love dogs. We say hello to the puppy, so all good. And then we ask what the dog's name is. And the lady says the dog's name is Violet. And so I'm like, and so I didn't want to say anything to Kathy because in front of the lady, I didn't want to think we're nuts. So we walk away, and I say, Kathy, the dog's name's Violet. And she says, "Oh, well, I wanted violet beach glass." Say, Kathy, the dog's name is Violet. Do you understand what that means? And she said, no. I said, no, honey, we have to see that lady again. We have to contact her again. Because signs and synchronicities is a method of communication from spirit. It's not just a clairvoyance saying, okay, grandma's trying to talk to you, although that's very important. But there are signs and synchronicities, and that's what I was missing. That's what Nick was saying. He was talking to me. It wasn't through a psychic, or it was through the signs and synchronicities. And so then when we saw that dog's name was Violet, I was like, Kathy, we have to find this lady again. I knew it was a sign. So that was it. And then, so 3 weeks later, we go and see her. She's there. We run over to her, and we tell her the story, and just so happens her son died in similar circumstances to my son. How did that happen? How did that happen? Kathy's walking on the beach, and she's asking for violet beach glass. We find this dog, Violet. Strange. Go home, come back. We find this lady again. We find this connection. Signs and synchronicities. Yeah. Those are the things I like. If there's one thing I want to share is that, that's the way my son has been contacting us at times. But so it's when a lot of times when people say, oh, I got a sign from grandma, that's the wow factor. There is a wow factor in things. But once I started to realize that I started to put the wow factor aside and I started to look for the message, then all of a sudden, like spirit began to open up to me more. I started to receive more messages about life. Once I stopped with the, wow, ain't that cool? When I started to really think about why am I getting this message? And that has been a life-changing experience for me. And really has opened my eyes. And when we mentioned in the beginning, like often people say, "Oh, Stephen, well, was it the drugs or was it a dream or other things?" It's these types of affirmations, and not only the experience in and of itself, but it's these types of affirmations that just like, no, there's no way, no.
I liked one quote. We have a lot more help than we realize. The lesson I learned there was that there are people in spirit that help us while we are on earth.
Yes. And so that's who Joey and Johnny were.
Yeah.
Is that Joey and Johnny, they were my spirit guides. They weren't there to help me there. They were here to help me here when I returned. And I felt them all through my recovery. It wasn't that they were saying, "Oh, Steve, one more push-up. Come on, Steve, you could do it." No, but I felt a surety of outcome. Like I felt like no matter if I did this, that, and the other thing, it would get better, no matter what. I would drive the nurses crazy. Those poor ladies, they work so hard. As soon as they go around the corner, I'd get out there on my walker and I would go down the hallway and they'd chase me back. And, I still visited them for years, for a long time afterwards, but I gave it my all. And so much having to do with the waking up in pain and knowing it would be better at the end of the day. All those were driving forces. And it was Joey and Johnny and having them there, feeling that energy. And so like I said, it wasn't like they were telling me anything, but in the same way I felt Kathy's energy in that place. I felt my higher self's energy. I felt everything's energy. I felt that energy there then. And I
think in the book you described that you rang her up.
Yeah, I rang her up. I texted her on the phone. I touched on that a little bit, Div. Sometimes I don't go into all the details, but yeah, I was waiting to get my phone. I was tied down, and I was saying it was a very odd thing, and I wanted to tell her that I saw her, but I was intubated.
Were you that certain?
As soon as I woke up, it was the first thought. But right. After seeing my mom and looking in the room and just like having the first moment alone, that's the first thing I thought of. Yeah, definitely. That was the first thing I thought of. And that's why so I got my phone, and it wasn't my phone, but all my things were on it, all my addresses. So somebody must have transferred it. And so Kathy was there. First thing I did is I texted her and I said, "Thank you for visiting me when I was out, if you know what I mean." And she said, "Huh?" And she said, because because she felt I guess she had feelings for me way before I had feelings for her, and she felt like the love I felt was a real love, not just love. And so what happened is that when I came to, I was in the hospital, and once I got out of like the immediate anesthesia kind of stuff, is that I had trouble thinking. Like it's not like I forgot anything. It was that I had to remember it. It's like it wasn't there anymore. And that I almost feel like a big part of my mind was erased. Not any of my memories, but I felt like how I felt about my memories were erased. It's not, it just took me a little while to think of things. But now I almost feel like it reminds me, okay, in my hometown, there was an old mental institution that had closed down in the 1990s. And so part of our working class heritage was being aides and orderlies in that institution. And so shock therapy was something that was used, that they used mostly insulin shock therapy and as a treatment of mental illness. And so many of the people who participated in that, I would give tours of the psychiatric center after it had closed. And sometimes I would talk to them and they would tell me how the patients liked receiving the electroshock therapy was kind of like rebooting their minds, and that it allowed them to rethink things through. And then I thought about my experience is that all of a sudden, like I was thinking again, and I was running kind of like life review all over again. It's like I was rebuilding my reactive mind all over again, but I was changing how I felt about everything. Like I was rebuilding my mind in a way that was much more healthier. Like so many times what you experience and then how you feel about it is ingrained at the time of it happening. Mm-hmm. Now I had an opportunity to have this complete life review in a physical way of my entire life, but with the wisdom of a 50-something-year-old man and with all of my experiences. And so I kind of like rebuilt my reactive minds with all of my experiences, but now I feel like I have a much more healthier mind now. Mm-hmm. And so this is something I think about, like once again, is this Stevie's imagination? Or is this really what's happened? And is this really like what I learned from my life review? In the same way, like my life review was reprogramming my spiritual mind. It's almost like this was a gift. And why did this happen? What I think, okay? And I'm talking to a physician, so I know I sound ridiculous. So I know this is absolutely poppycock, but I just want to share it with you. Is that what I think is that my body, I was so close to death. So close for a long period of time that your body has like, don't laugh. No. Your body will do anything to survive. And I think that your mind, when you get that close to death, it like dumps your reactive memory and is trying to use everything it's got to get you better. And I think that that's what that electroshock does, is that it tricks the body into thinking that it's fighting for its life. And I think, I mean, it's probably all BS, but those are kind of thoughts that I think of after the fact about now. I think of my mind and what has happened to me, and that from the spiritual experience, from this physical experience, and from the changes in my life and the person that I am now, is that this has been the most beautiful thing, with the exception of losing my son. This has been the most wonderful experience I could ever have. And I would never trade it for a day before to not go on that bicycle ride for anything. No way. Though what I feel now, what my life is now is so, it wasn't that my life wasn't good. My life was great, but now I know something different. And it's super great now, except for I do have bad days. You know, today is kind of like a so-so day. I'm happy because it's like a spiritual garden. And so I sit here and I say, oh, I'm okay with everything in the world. Oh, Stevie, you're so well adjusted. You're okay with that. You wrote a book. No, because spirituality is like a garden. You got to weed it. And sometimes I don't weed my garden. I don't. And the weeds get long. And then I find myself in a place I shouldn't be. And then I have to start weeding again. And sometimes it takes a lot longer. It's best to till the soil on a regular basis, if you know what I mean. And so I do have those moments, but gosh, life is so much better now. Yeah. It is. And I know I'm not afraid of death anymore. I want to get the most out of life. I want to get as many experiences as I want, as I can get, because imagine my life review without experiences. It's okay. If that's your path in life, to be a monk on a mountain, eat 3 blades of rice, and that's your, God bless you. But my advice is to live life to its fullest. Live it, learn, laugh, cry, have success, have failures, live life. Don't collect things. Really, really don't. If you have a choice of going on a beautiful trip or getting a nice little ring, go on a beautiful trip. Experience life. That's what it's about. And that's really the message that I have for people, is that no bad things are going to happen. You have to learn and grow from them. Find a way, or at least know that this is a possibility. And that's really when people start to walk a path, is that it's not like somebody can listen to Stevie's story and say, oh yeah, I'm enlightened now. No. And I don't even know if I'm enlightened, but I'm just saying that it could be a path. It could just be the first step. And it could just open up a door. You may never walk through that door again, but you're there. And that's kind of like what I'm hoping for.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your insights.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I wish you all the best and all success for your plans and your efforts in helping people.
Thank you.
And Yeah, thank you so much.
Peace. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your mission. I really do. And thank you.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. And then just to add, I think it's people like you and it's other people. I think it's really valuable. The experiences people have are individual, but I think the more we collect, the more we have these stories, I think the more our whole understanding of our life, of perhaps life after death, these between here and there, evolves for all of us. And I think for humanity, it's important to make that step out of the purely materialistic point of view into a wider, alive world.
I feel
We're
the same
grateful for
way.
you.
I would like to share one last very important point to you because you um, is that I believe I'm saying the gentleman's name right. His name is Dr. Parnow. He's from Stony Brook University. I've never met him, never came across him.
Wait a
And
minute, Parnia?
yeah, that's him. Is that he's a cardiac surgeon or he works with the cardiac, and he deals with people in many near death situations. And over the years he's had many people recount these things, and through that he's become very interested in it. But what he was talking about is that because medical technology has gotten to the point where people who would normally pass don't pass anymore, and their ability to be cognitive after experiencing these life-threatening situations is so much more possible than it once was.
Yeah.
And so what the general gist of what I got from what he's asserting is that as time goes on, as medical technology continues to advance, we're going to have more of these stories. And there's going to be more opportunity to do research and to understand these things just by the very nature of medical technology. And yeah. I really do. I'm 100% on what's following up on what you're saying is that there is more. There is more. And we're going to find out more. And people are opening up their minds and their hearts. And you could be a scientist and a spiritualist too. You can. You can. Let's not fight. We're saying the same stuff. I think I was talking to like one of my only science people, and he was saying that the reason why life is nothing but cells. He said that because anywhere in the universe you can put a planet under certain conditions, life will happen. He said that's the thing of universe. Saying exactly that's the thing of spirit. No matter where you go, spirit is going to happen. You're explaining the same things just from the same thing. So I could yak forever. I'll end with that and saying that a lot more to come. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Peace.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Be well.